So, well, I want to look at each of these components briefly, the subjective component, the cultural component, and then the institutional component. In a subjective component, the model of growth, spiritual, moral, cognitive growth, has been something that has been articulated by many thinkers over the past several decades. Lawrence Kohlberg, the psychologist, Carol Gilligan, who wrote a book called In a Different Voice about women's growth, women's development, and Ken Wilber, who I mentioned before, and the basic model that they have put forward is the model that starts with egocentrism. Young children, and you might say immature adults, are egocentric. They think in terms of my, me. You think of the current president of the United States, for example. My, me, everything about him. But we're as we're in a normal developmental process, as we grow, we become socialized, as they put it, and we move from the egocentric to the ethnocentric level, in which we absorb the elements of our own culture, our own community, our own religion, our parents' way of doing things and looking at things, our own language, and so on. And because we all assimilate these things naturally as we grow, it, it looks to us very often on the ethnocentric level as if our way of thinking, our way of doing things, my way that has to do with my language and my culture and my religion and so on, it looks as if this is the most common sense. And so when I look at other people and other cultures and other nations and using other languages and so on, it looks like they don't have as clear a grasp of reality as I do. That's the ethnocentric level. It thinks my way of looking at things is the most correct, and people all over the world naturally grow through this level. The important thing, as these psychologists have pointed out, is that we must keep growing, right? We must grow beyond this level to the world-centric level, the third level, right? The world-centric level it can come about through the study of other languages, through travel, through reading books and the internet and so on. One begins to realize that my way of looking at the world that I absorbed as a young person is not the correct way, and not necessarily the most accurate way, and so on. That the world is a very rich place with wonderful perspectives that come from many traditions and many cultures, and one begins to develop the idea that there can be such a thing as world citizenship, that we can have a global perspective, a planetary perspective, and we then transcend our own cultural background. Not that we leave it behind or we think it's less important, but we transcend it because we appreciate our common human civilizational project. We're all the same on this planet, right? As Swami Agnovich and the tradition of the Vedas says, Vaisudhaiva Kutumbakam, right? The world is one family. And this is the world-centric level. And it's absolutely important that the educational process and the peace leadership process do its best to point people in the direction of this level of self-transcendence. So we're moving from the ethnocentric level to a world-centric level. But these thinkers also point out that that's not the final level of development. The beyond the world-centric level is they often think in terms of the cosmocentric level. And cosmocentric means that one becomes integrated into a consciousness of the universe, the fundamental principles of the universe. Perhaps and this consciousness can be articulated in terms of different religious traditions, as we know, or different thinkers. One Sri Aurobindo comes to mind, right? Sri Aurobindo concludes that a human being is the universe become conscious of itself, right? The universe become conscious of itself in us. That's a cosmic level of cosmocentric level of spiritual development. And our cultures and our institutions and our education should point in this direction, right? We need to think in terms of the model of growth, right? The growth of young people, but also the growth of ourselves. Life is a continual process of development and growth toward these higher levels of awareness. So we become grounded at the cosmocentric level in precisely in an ever-growing insight into this utopian horizon of peace that I was articulating earlier. That peace is something that is there. It's natural, right? It's there in the proper development of human beings, from egoistic to ethnocentric to world-centric to cosmocentric. Peace, it becomes actualized in a more integrated and full, greater level. So we become to be conscious of our finitude, our limitations, is simultaneously, as I was saying before, to participate in infinitude, because consciousness itself is a self-transcending quality. And I think this is extremely important to reflect on and realize, because this is linked in traditions throughout the world. This is linked to the concept of human dignity, that human dignity means there's something special about a human being, any human being, whoever we are. There's something that distinguishes us from the natural world, from mere things. There's something that distinguishes us from other living things. And this has to do with this inner dynamic of consciousness that every human being participates in or shares, that becomes a recognition of something special about it being a human being. And I think this is very important for peace studies to reflect on this concept of human dignity.